Forgot to record here. Okay, so why is it not? Sorry, you answered it. What was it? It's not factored out. Do you see how the -2 is in the bracket with it and I need it out? So I'm going to rewrite it. Now what number will it be? A quarter times what would give you 2? Eight times a quarter would give you 2? Okay, now I have two things going on. I have a B and a C. Okay, which one should I write first, the B part or the C first? The B will have to go first. So what is going to happen? It will actually horizontally stretch by 4.
Can you do by like 1/4?
It would horizontally compress by a quarter,
Oh.
which mathematically, because this is what's happening. This is me compressing something by a quarter, right? When you divide by a quarter, it compresses by a quarter. But dividing by a quarter is the same as timesing by 4, which physically is actually making something bigger. So horizontally stretched by 4, and then it moves right 8. So you can bet that I'm going to probably have somewhere on the test that this compression stuff actually turns you around, right? You're compressing something, but it's actually making it bigger. So remember to think about that. And you can bet on your test, I'll give you one that I did not factor out. And then you'll have to make sure it's factored out. Okay, determine the new points. Okay, so do you remember how to write this? You better have this memorized. X divided by B, subtract C, AY plus D. Right, do you have that memorized? Okay, so X, there's a B of 2 divided by 2, subtract 3. A is out front, 2Y, subtract 4. Okay with how I wrote that? So follow. Okay, so I'm going to plug in a 12. 12 divided by 2. So if I compress it by 2, it's 6. 6 subtract 3 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 subtract 4 is 6. Okay, what does this mean? You have to just recognize the format. What does that format mean?
But then I gotta get you into 2000?
Not that's the next one. What does this little -1 symbol mean? The name of it starts with an I. Inverse. What does the inverse actually mean to physically do? Flip-flop. So you have to see how you just have to recognize the format. That means inverse. So if I flip-flop them around, this point would change to that. Okay, so this means to do what? Do you remember this?
Yeah, you.
Absolute value, which means whatever you have, you need to make sure it's positive. And then what should this be at as well? Down 6. Okay, which order should I do that in? Should I do the absolute and then down, or should I go down and then absolute? Absolute. So what's the, and you're only going with the y's, so what's the absolute value of -3? Positive 3, and then go down 6. What do you get to? -3.
Oh, so you only can affect the 3, not 8?
It doesn't do anything to the x. Okay, do you understand if I wrote it differently? What would have been the y value if I did this to you?
Yeah, because that would have been a C then, right?
No, this is a D.
Oh, it's still a D.
It's still a D. It's not in the bracket. 9, yeah. Because what does it say? It says go down 6 and then absolute. Do you see the difference between that and that?
Oh, yeah.
This means down 6 and then absolute. So what's down 6? -9. And then what's the absolute value of -9?
Is it because it's in the bracket?
Sorry, which one is dividing? There's only 2 things going on, and it's a down 6 and an absolute. There's only 2 things going on, a down 6 and an absolute, but it's all about my position of the brackets. Here I have the down 6 out of it, so you do the absolute and then down 6. But here I have the down 6 in the bracket, so down 6 and then absolute it all. Does that make sense? So there'll be something like this on your test, so please make sure you understand which order. Okay? Okay, what is this going on here? What's that? That's a B. And that is a
D.
D.
Left D?
It'd be up 1. Is that what you mean?
Yes, only C.
So I'm going to go x divided by -1, y plus 1 when I fill it into the spots. Okay, ready? 9 divided by -1 is -9. 0 plus 1. Okay, and then the last one, do you remember what this one does? The y, you have to do that to the y. So -1/5. That's what the new y is. Okay, are you okay to understand the difference? You have to understand the difference between those 3 things, right? What am I asking you? Inverse, flip-flop x, y. Absolutes, everything needs to be positive or 0. And then this is 1 over. Okay, you understand those 3 formats. Okay, number 3. An equation was transformed by reflecting over the y-axis. So what do I need for that? A negative A or the B? A negative B. It gets horizontally stretched by 3. So what do you know about the B number? Be careful here. 1/3. Yeah. Because if I put it as a 3, it actually horizontally compresses it by 3. So to horizontally stretch it, I need a fraction. Shifted right 1, so I need a C. I'm going to make sure C represents a right 1. And 4 units up, I'm going to need a D. We okay breaking that down? We're good? So now I'm going to say the new function g of x equals, and I'm going to put all that stuff in. I'm just going to show you what it needs to kind of look like, right? This is what it needs to look like. Okay, so we didn't have anything with an a, right? F of negative 1/3. So we had negative 1/3 as the b. I need right 1, so right 1, and I need an up 4. Okay, do you see how I broke all those thinking down? And then I'm always using this format as the basics of it, right? I think I may have put it somewhere in your test, but probably a good idea to have. Probably a good idea to have this basically solidly memorized, though, right? Those two big ideas. Are you good? Oh, you're writing it? Good? Okay. Given the graphs of f of x and g of x, write an equation for g of x in terms of f of x. So this is my original and g of x is my new. Okay, so tell me what your first instinct is. What did you do from this original to get to the new? Give me one thing that first jumps out at you.
It reflects.
It reflects. So I'm going to actually reflect it. Ready? This coordinate will go up. This would stay. This would stay. I got to pick another coordinate here. I don't know. Oh, 2, 2 will now go down there. Okay. So we reflect, which means what? What's going on? Negative A or B? I need a negative A. Okay, what else is something you see? It looks like it's getting squished, and here's kind of my thinking. What's the vertical space between these 2 points? They're 2 apart. Now, what's the vertical space between those 2 points? They're 1 apart. Just kind of see my visual thinking there? Therefore, they got squished together vertically. So A is going to be what kind of multiplier happened then? It's going to have to also be a half, so I'll put those together, right? A is going to be negative a half. Okay, so if I make A a half, I'm going to do that. So this point, instead of 2, will be 1. This point would stay, this point would stay. This negative 2 would move up there.
Can I ask where did you get the negative A from?
Because I flipped it over. I reflected it.
Oh,
So I knew it was negative. That was the first thing we did. And then I think that's it, right? It ends up like that.
so the 2 is from the reflect that you get, then 1 divided over 1.
I did the 1/2 because I compressed it by 2. The heights are a half of what they were.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I'd also had already flipped it over. So that's what my answer needs to be. That's what it will look like. Okay? On your test, I think I put some kind of, hey, I reflected it and then I maybe moved it right or something like that. Please make sure when you're drawing these, let's draw it reflected. Let's draw it shifted. You have to do a reflection before a shift or a stretch before a shift. Okay? You always have to think like order. Okay, graphing this. Okay, so I'm going to make my, remember this? I'm going to make that. Okay, what do we got here? 3, that's an A, and -1 is a B. Okay, so it's going to look like this. X divided by -1, 3y. We good with that? The -1 and the 3? Okay, I'm taking 4 coordinates to see what happens to them. So you can grab any one. So I'm gonna try those 4 coordinates to see what goes on. Okay, ready? I'm going to do all of the x's. All the x's. So I'm going to just negate them. So +4, 0. Now this is -1, -4. So I went through and I changed all the x's. Okay, now I'm going to go through the cycle of all the y's. So 3 times 0, 0. 18, ooh, might not want to graph that one. Three times 3, 9, and 9. Ooh, I probably didn't think about this one when I graphed it. Okay, 4, 0. I don't even know what to do here. I'm sorry, this didn't really work out very well. Let's just put it like, not the, it's not going to be realistic, but just put it like up there. All right. Okay, so does it look like it reflected? Yeah, I especially look for the arrow situation, right? The arrow, did it turn from right to left? And does it look like it's stretched apart? The points are pulled apart. Okay, sketching the graph of the inverse. What does inverse mean? Again, so you just have to memorize this. What does inverse do? It flip-flops x and y. Okay, I'm already listed those 4 coordinates above, so I'm just going to go off the above work here. So this should become 0, -4, 6, 0, 3, 1, and 3, 4. Is that okay? Those 4 points I changed. I think this one actually might fit on the graph. Okay, so basically on your test, you get 1 point for understanding where the coordinates are. But here's the hard part, how to connect them. Okay, what's another way to ask this question? If I say graph the inverse, I could also ask it reflect over y equals x. I could ask you in that kind of language. That's the same thing. Reflect over the diagonal, y equals x. Okay, does it look like it kind of did that? Okay. Ooh, here's what we were talking about before. Okay, I see absolute symbols and I see down 1. I see those two things. Which order do I do it? Absolute and then down, or down and then absolute?
Down and absolute.
Down and then absolute. Okay, so I'm going to physically do that. You ready? Move this point down, down, down. Bless you.
Are you going down by half or what?
I'm going down by 1. By exactly 1 unit. It's probably important that you carry that arrow like quite a bit just to make sure that it crossed above. Okay, I'm going to tell you, make sure you understand where your x-intercepts are, because your x-intercepts are where things are changing. Does that make sense? So I'm going to just keep going right on top of this. So that's my down one. We're good with the down one? Now, actually no, I will go over here. This part in the middle, this triangle stays. X-intercepts, make sure you get them. So that part stayed. Okay, and then I think it's like 5.5-ish is kind of the idea. There, so those pieces stayed. You okay with those? Positive, 0, they stay. Okay, negatives change to positive. So that has to change and that has to change. So 4, -3. I'm going to move it. And then this one would be -4, -5. Okay, so I kept my yellow and I changed the pink parts. Okay, but please understand the order there. That was a down and then an absolute. So in the test, I'm not sure. Do I do a down absolute or do I do an absolute and then down? So you'll have to find out. Okay, number 8 is the reciprocal. So 1 over. So I kind of break it down. 1 over 0 is undefined. That's the first thing I do. So that is here. The new height is undefined. And here. The new height is undefined. Okay, then I go with 1 and -1 because if I think about this, what's happening? They're not changing. If I flip a 1, 1 over 1 is just 1 still. So where's that happening? Should be 4 points that don't move. So those are called invariant. Okay, so those 4 points. And then I'm going to think away from 0 / close to 0 and opposite. So let's do the middle section here. So the highest height of 4 is now going to drop to the lowest height of 1/4. And then if that's the lowest height, you're just going to be moving away from 0. And you just kind of have to fill in your pattern.
Where are you getting the yeah.
Do you guys understand this piece? If I think about this pink area right here, that section of my graph is getting closer and closer to 0. So what's going on with my graph? It's going away from 0 there, right? Okay, now I'm going to go to this left section. The lowest is -4. So now it's going to be the highest at -1/4. And then since it's the highest, now I'm going to go drop. Okay, closer to 0 means move away from 0. Okay, and then this section, so this arrowhead is going away from 0, so I'm going to move closer to 0. And then this section gets closer to 0, so I will move away from 0. And this right here caused something to happen. If my graph is saying go closer, closer to 0, I now need asymptote at 0. Okay, I want to just quickly ask you what the domain of this would be. And I should have done something with the other question now if I look back. What's the domain? Okay, x. So here my x values exist from -4 is where they start out. I'm going along my graph. Oh, at -3, I kind of have to jump over -3. So I'm going to put a round bracket and then restart. I'm going exactly from -4, and as I get to -3, I have to jump over it. And then I get to go again. So -3, I'm going. Oh, I got to 2. I have to jump over it. And then I get to restart at 2 again, and then I can, this arrow says I keep going. So do you understand round brackets means you get close to something, but you don't hit it, right? but this was a square because you can be, you were there. What's the range of this one? What's the lowest height? 0. That's the lowest height to the highest height of?
That one, you were going up.
The final graph here. Yeah. The lowest height was 0 and the highest height is arrowhead up. So does it make sense when you do an absolute of whatever, it's going to be 0 to infinite, right? Okay, unless there was an absolute and then a down, then it lowers it, but. Okay, for question number 8, what would be the range of the graph if I reflected it over this line y equals x? What does this mean? It's the same thing as this, which is the same thing as this. That is all the same idea, right? What's the range of that? So what do I know about the range of that? It will equal the domain of the original. Does that make sense? Do you remember that? The y values of, once you've done it, were the original x values because you flip-flopped the x and turned the x stuff into the y stuff. Okay, we've actually already graphed over it, but remember it looked like this. So what was the original domain from -4 to infinite? That was the original domain, which will be the range on the inverse.
But you don't have to skip over things because you didn't draw.
Yeah,
You have
no,
to
yeah,
use
just
the one that-
that's why I said just of my original one, not the reciprocal one. Yeah. Oh, I don't see it here, but I will ask you one of these on the test. If f of x has sorry. If f of x has these points, what's the domain of the inverse? I might ask you something like that. When I say I might ask you, I do ask you. So these are points. So the domain of the inverse is the what of the original? The y of the original. So this. But this is not from this to that. It's just specifically -1, 5, and 10. So I write it with squiggly brackets to mean just this, this, and this. It's just a list of the y values, which are now the x values, right? So that's the list of the new x values. Okay, so given this equation, write the equation for the inverse. Okay, so inverse means switch x and y. So you got to keep knowing that. Okay, so this is the original y. So it's going to become x. This is the original x, so it's going to become the new y. Okay, so what should I do algebra on here? Add 9. So x plus 9. And then I should divide by half, which in math is the same thing as timesing by 2. Okay, I'm gonna probably guess there might be some errors here. What do you have to be careful to write after this part? 18. Right? I'm guessing it'd be a very easy mistake to just times the 2 by the x. Okay, I should write it. The inverse function is 2x plus 18.
Where did you get the 2?
Where did I get the 2? How do I get rid of a half? What's the opposite thing of as a half? If I times by 2, it makes a cancel, right? Okay, on your test, I might have asked this question. Find f1 of -5 or something like that. That's how I might ask a question. So, what would you do if I had asked that instead? You do the exact same thing you just did, and now you have to input a -5. Okay, so that's all this means. So do the same stuff. I just am asking you to go one step further. What is the inverse function when you plug in a -5? Okay? Do you notice that some of these things that I say are maybe on your test are probably 100% on your test? Okay. Given this graph that, so what do we got here? This is a B, a C, a D, so this is important. You keep understanding how to write your new math coordinate. I think this is the same as we had over there. I don't know, I grabbed a few points there. Oh, what am I doing here? Not -4, 0. Hopefully you're not copying me. Did you write the same thing I did?
Yep.
I did that so many times the other day. I just kept putting the first point as 0, no matter what I was doing. -4, -4. Hopefully I did the rest of them right. I don't know, 3, -1 if you want another one on there. Okay. You ready? I'm going to go through all of the x's. Okay. Divide by -2 is 2. Plus 3 is 5. If -3 divided by -2 is what? 1.5 plus 3, so 4.5. -2 divided by -2 is 1 plus 3, 0 plus 3. 2 divided by -2 is -1 plus 3 is 2.
What about the D?
I haven't done it yet. That's on the y, so that's why I hadn't tackled it.
No, why it's both of them. Oh, I see.
Yeah, because of that one equation thing that you have on your note there. Okay, and now I go through all my y's and I add 1. So -3, 1, 5, 3, 1. Okay, now it's up to you to just graph them. Okay. You can always check your answer. Does it look like it got horizontally compressed? Do you see that? It got squished in like an accordion. Do you see it? Do you see that it reflected and then it shifted right and up? Okay. Okay, so the next two questions at the bottom there, don't scratch them out, but that's the second half of the test. So we still have to do that after this part. I feel like I want to do one more with you. Okay, so pretend that this is f of x. I'm going to give you another drawing and you have to figure out the equation. So it has nothing to do with this question. We were done that question. So pretend that you have a point right there. Okay, so I gave you a few new points and a new drawing. What did I do to the graph? How did I move from F to the G? What did I all do? And can you make me an equation?
Positive C for going right.
It looks like it went right. Okay, what else do you see out of it though?
It also has
It compressed. Do you see how, here, what's the distance between these coordinates? How much horizontal space is there between those two? 1. How much horizontal space was between them before?
3.
2. Here they're 2 apart and here they're 1 apart. So what did I do? I horizontally compressed by 2.
I got the same answer, but I didn't do that. I just looked at both the graphs and realized that one was half of the other. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do that. You ready? If this was -4, now it's a -2. I moved it. If this was a -2, now it will move in towards a -1. The coordinate over here at 2 would have been at 1. So I did compress it. I can see that I compressed it, which is my yellow graph. Then, what did I do to that yellow graph yet? Then I moved it right 1. Okay, but do you understand that when I'm seeing things, hey, I saw some kind of right and I saw some kind of compression, but I have to talk about the compression before the right. Okay, and I physically did it. I physically said, well, what does it look like if I compressed it? Okay, well, it's not quite there. What else did I do to it? Okay, you have 2 of those on your test, so I want to make sure you really get those ones.